Have you ever walked into an old house and felt instantly transported to another era? A place where every creak in the floorboards and every detail on the walls whispers stories from the past? Today, we're about to open the door to homes built with character, charm, and clever features that modern design has all but forgotten. Imagine living in a world where your milk was delivered through a tiny hidden door, or where a quick tug on a rope could send lunch gliding up to the second floor. From grand parlors meant for entertaining the most esteemed guests, to ingenious transom windows that cooled a room without a hint of electricity, these homes were full of smart solutions and elegant touches. As we stroll through these vintage spaces, get ready to rediscover the everyday inventions, from iceboxes to butlers' pantries, that shaped how families lived, worked, and connected. So grab a cozy seat and let's revisit the small wonders that once made a house feel truly like home. Have you ever walked into an old house and felt like the air itself was heavy with memories? Maybe it's the way the sunlight slants through wavy glass. Or that unmistakable scent, a mix of wood polish, old fabric, and something warm, almost comforting. The floorboards creak beneath your feet, not in protest, but as if they're greeting another visitor in a long, unbroken line. It's strange, isn't it? How a house can feel alive. How the walls seem to remember voices. Laughter echoing from rooms that once held birthday parties, quiet talks by the fire, or the hush of family secrets shared late at night. Every scratch on the banister, every worn spot on the stairs, tells you someone was here before, a parade of generations, all weaving their stories into the grain. You look around and start to notice the details. The heavy doors, built to last longer than trends. The stained glass transom above a weathered frame, catching the day's last rays in a burst of color. Maybe there's an old, dented brass key on the table, or a faded family photograph on the mantel, smiling faces frozen in a time you can almost touch. You wonder about the lives behind those smiles. The daily routines, the little inventions and clever touches that shaped their world. When was the last time someone wound the clock in the hallway, or polished the silver in the butler's pantry? Did children sneak sips of cold milk from the doorstep or race to the icebox on a summer's day? Did someone sit by the window, reading letters by the gentle glow of a flickering lamp? What we see as relics, old gadgets, odd little nooks, forgotten features, were once part of everyday life. They solved problems, made chores easier, or simply brought a bit of beauty into regular moments. Each one is a glimpse into the way people lived, loved, and found comfort in their homes. So today, let's do more than just open doors, let's wander through stories. Let's dust off the past and see the heart and ingenuity that turned four walls into a sanctuary. Because in every forgotten feature, there's a spark of human hope, a piece of history waiting to be noticed again. Ready to step inside? Let's begin our journey. Now, let's open the kitchen door and step back to a time before refrigerators quietly buzzed in the corner. Imagine a sturdy, handsome cabinet, maybe oak or walnut, with heavy doors and a satisfying latch. This was the icebox, the heart of the old-fashioned kitchen, and a true treasure chest for anything you wanted to keep cool. Instead of a hum, you'd hear the gentle drip of melting ice, and maybe catch a whiff of cold, damp wood when you opened the door. Inside, a big block of ice sat on a metal shelf at the top, chilling everything below. Milk, butter, eggs, all carefully arranged. Each week, the iceman would roll down the street in his wagon, hauling massive blocks wrapped in burlap. You'd hear the crunch of wagon wheels and the clink of ice tongs long before he arrived. Kids often raced outside, hoping he'd chip off a sliver for them to suck on during summer's heat. Bringing in the ice was an event. Sometimes, it meant shuffling furniture, wiping up puddles, and reminding everyone, don't leave the door open. But it also meant cool lemonade, safe food, and the simple magic of being able to save leftovers for tomorrow. Families learned to plan their meals carefully, making the most of what the ice could keep fresh. There was a rhythm to it, a certain patience. If you ran out of ice, you made do, got creative with what you had, or waited for the next delivery. It wasn't just about keeping food cold. The icebox was a daily reminder that technology and tradition could meet in one corner of the house. It brought people together, too. Maybe you'd hear stories from the iceman about the neighborhood, or trade recipes with neighbors as you stocked your shelves. Everyone had their own tricks for getting the most from a single block, wrapping things in towels, storing perishables close to the ice, or sneaking treats to the back. For many, the icebox holds memories of childhood, of peeking inside for a forbidden snack or feeling that burst of cool air on a hot afternoon. It was simple, but ingenious. There's something almost magical about waiting for the iceman, managing the box, and savoring the little luxuries that cold could bring. Today, with the touch of a button, we chill and freeze anything we want. But back then, each frosty breeze came with effort, anticipation, and a little bit of wonder. The icebox didn't just preserve food. It preserved moments, tiny rituals that turned everyday survival into something memorable and even a little bit special. Now, let's glance upward, right above the doorway. There, in so many old houses, you'll spot a transom window. It might look like a simple pane of glass, but for generations, this was a tiny powerhouse of comfort, light, and fresh air. Think back to a time before air conditioning, before fans were buzzing in every room. On a hot summer night, if your only escape was an open window, you'd still be at the mercy of a stubborn, stuffy house. But a transom window, cleverly hinged and perched above the door, was a secret portal. Open it just a crack, and suddenly you had a gentle breeze drifting through the hallways. Cross-ventilation at its finest. But it wasn't just about airflow. These windows were designed for privacy. You could let the light and air in, without anyone peeking through from outside or the hallway. It's such a simple thing, but it made a world of difference, especially in bedrooms and parlors, where you wanted comfort without sacrificing solitude. Opening a transom was almost ceremonial. There was usually a long, hook-tipped rod, called a transom operator, resting nearby. With a practiced hand, you'd reach up and swing the window open, just enough to let the fresh air in. Sometimes, you'd hear them creak, a gentle invitation for the day's breeze or nighttime coolness. Transom windows weren't only for grand homes or city townhouses. You'd find them in modest cottages, too. They were a great leveler, something beautiful and practical that nearly everyone could enjoy. And they added a little touch of elegance to a space, making even the simplest room feel special. Light, too, played a big part. Sunlight could pour in from above, making dark hallways and closed rooms feel more open and welcoming. It's easy to forget how precious daylight was before electricity brightened every corner. A transom made homes feel alive, changing with the sun, the weather, and the seasons. Today, we think of design as something new and innovative. But these old features remind us that people have always searched for ways to make home life better. They were problem solvers, using what they had to bring a little more comfort and joy into their daily routine. So next time you walk into an old building and notice a small window above the door, take a moment. Imagine the cool air drifting in, the golden sunlight filtering through, and the quiet satisfaction of a house built for both beauty and practical living. That's the magic of a transom window, light and air above all. Now, let's step into a room that truly captured the heartbeat of the household, the parlor. Imagine polished wood, velvet drapes, and the gentle gleam of a piano in the corner. This was more than just a room. It was a stage for life's biggest moments. Birthdays, engagements, holiday gatherings, even the occasional game night or heartfelt reunion. Family portraits hung proudly on the walls. There'd be a vase of fresh flowers on the table, maybe a clock chiming softly in the background. The parlor was where you brought out your best china, your finest manners, and your most memorable stories. It was the one room always kept spotless, ready at a moment's notice for visiting relatives or unexpected guests. You might remember stories from grandparents about how the parlor was strictly off limits to children, except on special occasions. Back then, every cushion, every doily, every carefully curated piece of furniture spoke of pride and hospitality. It was a place for everything, and everything in its place. Some families even saved up for years to buy a piano or a settee, just to make their parlor the envy of the neighborhood. You can almost picture it, friends gathering for tea, music filling the air, laughter echoing against the wallpaper. The parlor was the backdrop for so many firsts, first dances, first introductions, sometimes even first romances. But as the decades passed, the parlor began to transform. Radios came into homes, then televisions. Families wanted rooms that were more relaxed, more lived in, spaces where you could kick off your shoes and unwind after a long day. The formal parlor slowly gave way to what we now call the living room, an open space for movie nights, board games, and everyday messes. Furniture became cozier. Rules loosened. The ornate silence of the parlor was replaced by the hum of conversation, music, and daily life. But if you look closely at modern homes, you'll still see echoes of the old parlor. Maybe it's the upright piano in the corner, or those framed photos above the mantel. Maybe it's the way we still gather to celebrate, to mourn, to mark milestones together. Even if the walls have come down and the rules have relaxed, the spirit of the parlor lives on. Because every home needs a space for connection, a place to come together, to make memories, and to share the moments that matter most. Now, let's slip behind the scenes into a part of the house many visitors never saw, the servants' quarters. Tucked away in the attic, squeezed into a side hallway, or hidden down in the basement, these small rooms were worlds of their own. Windows were rare. Walls were thin. Space was always in short supply. But for the people who lived and worked here, housekeepers, cooks, nannies, maids, this was home, just steps from where their day began, and often just steps from where it ended. Imagine waking up before sunrise to the muffled sound of boots on the stairs. The morning routines were quiet, well-practiced, and invisible to the family above. Breakfast didn't just appear, it was prepared hours ahead, and kitchens filled with the smells of baking bread and strong coffee. Laundry and linens needed washing. Fireplaces had to be lit. Silver had to shine. For the staff, life was a rhythm of routines, marked by bells, whispered conversations, and stolen moments of rest. There might be a narrow bed with a worn quilt, a single shared dresser, and perhaps a faded photograph tucked into a mirror's corner, a private reminder of life outside these walls. Dreams and plans, laughter and loss, all happened in these cramped spaces, even if the house itself rarely noticed. Sometimes, camaraderie grew strong, friendships born out of hard work and long days. Other times, the work was lonely, and the days never seemed to end. But even in the shadows, dignity and pride found a place. The design of these rooms reflected a different era, when architecture itself enforced social boundaries. Family and staff moved through the same house along entirely different paths, rarely meeting but always interconnected. Back staircases let servants move unseen. Dumb waiters delivered trays from kitchen to bedroom without a word. Yet, for all the separation, the staff's labor was the silent heartbeat of the home. And while the chandeliers sparkled in the parlor, it was the servants' quarters that kept the lights on, the fires burning, and the meals on the table. Today, finding these humble rooms in a historic house is like uncovering a secret, a reminder of lives lived in the background, full of resilience, sacrifice, and steady hope. They tell stories of people who shaped not just the house, but the family and history within it. And as we walk through these quiet spaces, we're reminded that every grand home stands on unseen foundations, and every story is richer for what happens in the shadows. Now, imagine waking up on a chilly morning, sunlight just peeking through the curtains, and instead of turning on a tap, you head over to a wooden washstand in the corner of your bedroom. There's a porcelain basin waiting for you, cool to the touch, and a matching pitcher filled earlier with water from the kitchen or backyard pump. This was how mornings began for generations. You'd pour just enough water for a quick splash on your face, maybe add a drop of lavender soap from a tiny drawer beneath the basin. All your essentials were right there: comb, brush, a well-worn cloth, for a daily ritual that was as much about starting fresh as it was about being clean. There's a certain grace in these old routines. The quiet focus of pouring water, of carefully folding a towel, of brushing your hair by the soft light of a window. Without the convenience of plumbing, every drop of water mattered. You planned ahead. You learned to make do and appreciate what you had. Some washstands were simple and sturdy, passed down through families until the wood grew smooth from years of use. Others were small works of art, curved legs, marble tops, delicate tile inlays, designed to blend beauty and utility in one forgotten corner of the room. For children, the washstand was a lesson in responsibility. Filling the pitcher might have meant a trip downstairs or out to the well, no excuses. For adults, it was a moment to pause, to gather your thoughts before the day began. It's easy to forget just how recently all this changed. The arrival of indoor plumbing transformed homes and lives in ways our ancestors could hardly imagine. Suddenly, cleaning up was quick, private, convenient. The washstand, once a centerpiece of daily life, slowly disappeared, tucked into attics or relegated to the world of antiques and old photographs. But even now, there's something quietly beautiful about those lost rituals. Something almost meditative in the gentle act of washing up by hand, with everything you need within arm's reach and nothing more. Maybe that's why, when we see a vintage washstand in a museum or a period film, we feel a pang of nostalgia, a reminder of a slower, more intentional way to begin the day. It's a small window into a world where routine was ritual and every morning started with a careful, deliberate touch. And it makes you wonder, what daily habits will future generations look back on with the same mix of wonder and affection? Now, let's head down to the heart of an old house, the cellar. Here, under the creak of wooden floors and the fading laughter from upstairs, is where the true pulse of the home once beat. If you look closely at the foundation walls, you might spot a heavy iron flap, chipped with age. That's the coal chute, a portal to a time when keeping warm wasn't just a matter of turning a dial. Every week, the rumble of a delivery wagon signaled fresh coal on its way. The coalman would haul sacks to the side of the house, swing open that stubborn flap, and pour a river of black lumps into the cellar. The crash echoed through the basement, sending up clouds of coal dust that settled over everything. Walls, shelves, even the old jars of preserves, nothing was spared. Shoveling coal was a daily ritual for many families. In the biting chill of early morning, someone, often a parent, sometimes a child, would make the trek downstairs. They'd fill the scuttle, then tiptoe back up, careful not to spill a trail of dust across polished floors. Feeding the hungry furnace was more than just a chore, it was a hands-on lesson in resilience, routine, and the value of comfort hard-earned. For wealthy households, things looked a little different. There might have been mechanical stokers, ingenious devices that fed the furnace automatically, luxury, for sure, but even so, the coal had to get there first. In both grand manors and humble cottages, that connection to coal shaped daily life. Soot smudges on cheeks and the distinct, almost metallic scent lingering in the air became part of the home's identity. Coal cellars were more than storage rooms. They held stories of winter nights gathered close by the radiator, of frozen pipes thawed just in time for breakfast, of the first puff of warm air after a long, cold day. For some, childhood memories are mixed with the scrape of a shovel and the glow of embers through the furnace door. Over time, things changed. Cleaner fuels arrived, and central heating meant no more midnight shoveling or dust in every corner. But if you ever wander into an old basement and spot that battered chute, take a moment. It's a quiet relic of lives warmed by hard work, ingenuity, and the simple hope for a cozy evening at home. Now, let's flip a switch, literally, and talk about one of the most pivotal changes ever to enter the home: electricity. Imagine the thrill of seeing your house softly glow for the first time, after years of oil lamps and candles. There's something magical about that kind of progress, even if it came with a few quirks. Back in the early days, electricity didn't flow through the sleek, hidden wires we're used to. Instead, homes were outfitted with something called knob and tube wiring. Picture white ceramic knobs, nailed to wooden beams, cradling wires that stretched like tiny bridges across basements and attics. Porcelain tubes protected the wires as they passed through floor joists and wall studs, keeping the current away from the dry old timbers that made up the bones of the house. To us, it might look a little primitive, even spooky, wires exposed, winding their way through shadowy corners. But for families then, it was state-of-the-art, and it meant freedom from soot and smoke. For the first time, families could read or cook or do chores after sunset without huddling around a flickering flame. You could even have a light in every room, controlled with a simple flip of a switch. Of course, safety standards were still finding their footing. The wires were insulated with a kind of woven cloth, tough for its time but nothing like modern materials. Over the decades, that cloth wore out, dried up, or even crumbled. Homeowners sometimes added more and more gadgets, overworking the old system, pushing it well past what the inventors ever imagined. Today, if you wander through an old house with a curious eye, you might still spot those little white knobs tucked under a basement beam, or a bit of brittle wiring hiding behind plaster. Home inspectors see them and know they're a sign of the home's long history, one filled with both invention and a few close calls. Knob and tube wiring reminds us how quickly technology can change the way we live. It's a symbol of the risks people took for comfort and convenience, and the lessons we keep learning about making homes safer. It's proof that every upgrade, even the humble light bulb, has a story behind it. And while most of us don't want our walls humming with ancient wires, it's hard not to marvel at the first sparks that lit up the night and brought a new era into every room. Let's step outside for a moment, to the side of an old house, just below the kitchen window. There, tucked between bricks or siding, you might spot a little square door. Not for people, not quite for pets. This was the milk door, the unsung hero of breakfast tables everywhere. Every morning, before the sun had fully climbed, the milkman would rumble down the street in his truck or horse-drawn cart. He'd slip quietly through back gates and along garden paths. In one hand, that familiar glass bottle, cool with condensation. With a practiced motion, he'd open the outer flap, set a fresh bottle inside, and take empty ones left from the day before. Sometimes, neighbors would pause at their own doors, sharing a wave or a quick hello. But often, milk delivery was a quiet ritual, a moment of connection that happened even while families still slept. Inside the house, the kitchen would wake to the gentle clink of glass. Whoever was up first, a parent, a child, maybe even a grandparent, would open the inner flap to find fresh milk waiting, safe from weather, wandering cats, or curious raccoons. No need to run to the store. No worries about spoiled milk sitting on the stoop in the summer heat. Just the simple trust that, each morning, the essentials would arrive right in reach. That little door did more than keep dairy cold. It was its own tiny portal between private life and the wider world. It connected homes to local farms, dairies, and people whose names everyone knew. Sometimes, a handwritten note or coins for next week's order would pass through, messages exchanged without a word spoken. Children might compete to be the first to check the milk door, eager for cream to pour on cereal or to sample a sneaky sip. It was a small but daily reminder that community lived in the spaces between routines. As refrigeration became common and supermarkets multiplied, milk doors fell out of use. The quiet thrill of a morning delivery faded, replaced by barcodes and shopping aisles. But if you look closely at old houses, you might still catch a glimpse, a bricked-up square, or a painted-over panel. A silent witness to a time when connection was measured not in likes or notifications, but in the sound of glass bottles and the promise of another simple day. What would it be like if we brought back a little bit of that magic? A moment to slow down, trust our neighbors, and welcome the world, one small door at a time. Now, let's slip through a quiet doorway, just beyond the bustle of the kitchen and the elegance of the dining room. Here we find the butler's pantry, a world unto itself, humming with quiet purpose and hidden order. Imagine polished wood countertops gleaming in the soft morning light. Glass-fronted cabinets stacked with delicate china, silver trays, and crystal glasses, each item in its exact place. This narrow passage wasn't just a room, it was the nerve center of household hospitality. The butler's pantry was technically a workspace, but it had its own sense of grace. Here, a butler or housekeeper would prepare everything for a dinner party or family celebration. Silverware carefully counted and polished until it gleamed like new. Table linens folded just right. Tall jugs of water filled and waiting for the next service. In many homes, this was the domain of the butler, sometimes so trusted that he would sleep here, just steps away from the family's most treasured possessions. It was a place of pride and responsibility. To the butler, every spoon, every glass, every plate told a story. The sound of gently clinking glasses, the soft swipe of a polishing cloth, the quiet moments of checking and double-checking before a big meal, these were acts of devotion, not just chores. But the butler's pantry wasn't just about keeping things spotless. It was about being prepared. In an era before dishwashers and disposable wares, every event meant hours of careful planning. A quick trip to the pantry, and you'd find anything you needed: a replacement teacup, a set of candlesticks, an emergency corkscrew for a last-minute toast. The layout itself was designed for efficiency. Doors connected it to both the kitchen and the dining room, letting staff move seamlessly, unseen, between courses. Drawers and shelves made use of every inch, turning a cramped space into a model of organization. There was elegance in the routine. The butler's pantry held the thrill of anticipation, readying for a wedding supper, a holiday feast, or a simple Sunday lunch. Every time the family gathered, this little room played its part, quietly shaping the occasion. Today, you'll still find echoes of the butler's pantry in modern homes. Sometimes it's a sleek coffee bar, other times, a wine nook or a baking center. The spirit remains, a love of order, an appreciation for beauty, and a devotion to the rituals that make a house come alive. It's a testament to the idea that true elegance is built on care, preparation, and the quiet joy of serving others. Let's open a small door to a truly clever invention, one you might miss if you're not looking closely: the dumb waiter. Picture this: tucked neatly into a kitchen wall or hidden behind a panel in a dining room, there's a tiny elevator shaft just big enough for a tray of food, a stack of linens, or sometimes a bundle of laundry. It was the ultimate tool for making life just a little bit easier in tall homes and bustling apartment buildings. Before electric lifts and intercoms, dumb waiters ran on pure ingenuity, simple ropes, sturdy pulleys, and a bit of muscle. With a gentle tug, you could send a meal up to a hungry family member or whisk dirty dishes down to the kitchen, all without climbing a single step. In grand houses, the dumb waiter was often the silent helper behind every smooth dinner service. Want to impress guests with piping hot soup or a perfectly chilled dessert? No need to parade through the halls, just place the dish inside, close the door, and let the dumb waiter do the heavy lifting. But it wasn't just about convenience. These nifty lifts offered a discreet way to keep the behind-the-scenes work of the home hidden from view. Servants could move food, laundry, even coal or firewood between floors without interrupting the family's daily life. In some cases, dumb waiters became the secret passageways of the household. Children would slip notes to each other between floors or sneak midnight snacks when no one was looking. Stories even tell of pets hitching a ride for a little adventure. In city buildings, dumb waiters connected apartments to the basement, where deliveries could slip in unseen, or garbage could be sent down without dirtying the stairwells. When electricity arrived, dumb waiters got an upgrade. Motors made them faster and easier to use, bringing a sense of modern magic to everyday chores. Though their heyday has passed, a few of these charming lifts still survive in old homes and historic hotels, lovingly restored and occasionally still in use. Some homeowners proudly show off their dumb waiter as a quirky centerpiece, a conversation starter with a fascinating history. It's a reminder of how small innovations, hidden in the walls, once shaped our daily routines behind the scenes. Maybe, just maybe, there's still a place for a little elevator magic in the homes of tomorrow. Wouldn't it be wonderful to send breakfast up with a simple pull of a rope, or maybe, as in days gone by, a secret message to someone you love? Now, let's look up, way up, to a detail that's easy to miss but impossible not to appreciate once you know its secret, the picture rail. Imagine you're standing in a cozy, sunlit room from 100 years ago. The walls are tall, painted in gentle colors, and running just below the ceiling is a narrow wooden molding. That's the picture rail, a little strip of magic that changed how people decorated their homes. Back then, hanging art wasn't as simple as hammering a nail into drywall. Walls were often made of horsehair plaster, fragile, beautiful, and surprisingly delicate. One wrong move, and you'd end up with a crack running halfway across the room. But picture rails let people get creative without the worry. You'd just loop a wire over the rail, attach a hook, and hang your favorite painting. No holes, no mess, no angry landlord or spouse. Need to rearrange the gallery for a party? No problem. Just slide the hooks along the rail, and your walls stay flawless. But it wasn't just about protecting the plaster. Picture rails invited people to express themselves, mixing and matching artwork until a space felt just right. Family photos, landscapes, bold abstract pieces, everything found a home on that slender line. Some homes had rails in every room, others reserved them for parlors and halls, where guests would linger and admire a carefully curated collection. And there was an artistry to it, too. The wires could be thin and nearly invisible, or twisted into pretty shapes. Sometimes, the hooks themselves were little works of art, brass, porcelain, even gilded. Adjusting a picture became a ritual, done with care and intention. You might stand back, tilt your head, and debate whether the portrait looked better beside the fireplace or gazing out over the piano. Today, picture rails are mostly a detail from another era, something you might notice in a historic home or spot in the background of a period film. But for those who still use them, they're a reminder that good design solves real problems and adds a touch of elegance along the way. Wouldn't it be nice to make decorating that simple again? No tools, no holes, just a little bit of old-fashioned ingenuity, and the freedom to change your mind as often as inspiration strikes. That's the quiet genius of the picture rail, still hanging in the corners of history, ready to surprise anyone who looks up. It's funny, isn't it? When we think of old homes, it's easy to just see quirky gadgets or faded styles. But each of these forgotten features tells a deeper story about the people who lived there, the challenges they faced, and the little victories that made everyday life special. Maybe it's the echo of children's laughter running out to greet the iceman, or the quiet pride in a perfectly polished butler's pantry, or even the hush of a parlor where families came together for celebrations and goodbyes. These weren't just conveniences, they were rituals that shaped the rhythms of home. They connected people, generation after generation. And sure, some of those solutions sprang from necessity: no electricity, no plumbing, no central heating. But there's something beautiful in the way our ancestors met those challenges. They found clever ways to bring in light and fresh air. They made do and made things last. They found connection in the clink of milk bottles on a doorstep or a note sent up a dumb waiter. Today, our homes are more high-tech than ever. We have voice assistants, smart thermostats, and apps that can order a week's worth of groceries with a single tap. But think about it, how many of those modern conveniences truly invite us to slow down, to gather, to notice the little things? Sometimes, the simplicity of the past has something to teach us. Maybe it's about making room for conversation instead of more screens, or finding ways to add a touch of beauty and purpose to everyday routines. As we dream up the homes of the future, maybe we should look backward as well as forward. What would it mean to borrow a little elegance from the parlor, a little resourcefulness from the icebox, or even a little community spirit from the humble milk door? These old features remind us that a house isn't just a collection of rooms and gadgets, it's a living memory shaped by the people who call it home. So, as we close the door on this journey, I hope you're inspired to look differently at the places we live in and the features we sometimes take for granted. Which of these forgotten treasures would you bring back if you could? Let me know in the comments. And if you loved this glimpse into the homes of yesterday, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories, more history, and more inspiration for making your own house truly a home.